Hello, everybody. Once again, welcome to the Detroit Church of Christ. My name's Nigel, and I'm here with Ben, Jen, and Mitch. Ben and Jen Weatherston. And Mitch, what is your last name again?
Peréz.
So we're here with them. We are coming to the community of disciples all around the world to encourage them with tales of Detroit. And just encourage them about what's happening outside of their bubble, you know. So here in Detroit, we have some great folks, and we think it's important to tell their stories. Ben and Jen Weatherston are some of those great folks. Also, Mitch Peréz, another one of those great folks. And we just want to encourage you guys with their stories. So, first question, Ben, Jen, Mitch, you can answer whatever order you want. What brought you to Christ, and what is your conversion story, essentially?
Do you want to start?
Sure. It's a long story. I grew up going to church. My dad was a minister. I grew up going to church my whole life. And always, people ask me why I sit in the front row. It's literally, I only have always ever sat in the front row at church growing up my whole life. Then I had a solid foundation of the scriptures and an understanding of who God was. My parents were awesome. I personally, as a child, did not make Jesus Lord of my life. I was fully in control through all my rebellious years and my mistakes. And then when I got to college, like later, actually after college, I was hanging out at college and with Jen, and then met Chad Taylor, Avon Seabarth, and they invited me out to church. And when I started studying the Bible, it became clear, like, wow, this is a standard that I had never chosen to follow. And so, I got baptized like 10 days later, and I'd like to say that, it was all great, but sometimes I feel like I made just as many mistakes after I became a Christian. Maybe not. But the idea was, when I was faced with what the biblical definition of discipleship was, very obvious that I was not following that, or had never applied that to my own life. And so it was very clear, and I just said, all right, whatever I need to do.
Okay. Jen.
Yeah, I would say that Ben and I had already been in a dating relationship for about 5 years. When we met the disciples on the Eastern Michigan University campus. And because we were in a dating relationship, I just ended up following Ben to Bible talk and midweeks and church service.
That's one way.
Yeah, right. So I was a little more hard-hearted though when I started studying the Bible. I just said, I'm good, thanks. And it took me a few months to really get humble, study the Bible again. And so I became a disciple in June of 2000.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Mitch.
So I am a kingdom kid, quote unquote, whatever the word is. But usually when I explain my coming to God, I guess, story, I usually like to share my parents' story, because if they didn't come to God, I wouldn't have grown up in the church and met God. But my parents were, when they were in college at a place called NIU, Northern Illinois University, they were dating at the time, and were kind of looking for things spiritually, but not totally. But one time they took a trip down to Florida for spring break. On the way back, though, they decided to read the whole book of Matthew. And after they got back, though, they got back to DeKalb, Illinois, which is where NIU is. They turned to each other and were like, do you understand this? And they're both like, not really. And so they knew that praying was good, and so they prayed, like, God, please send us true disciples. And not even, I think it was either the next day or 2 days later, I can't remember. But my dad is in a weight room lifting, because he was a pike, and he was always lifting or whatever at the pike house or whatever. And my dad dad wasn't a very nice guy because, I mean, the Pikes are guys, probably some of the biggest sinners on campus. They're lifting, they're swearing, they're drinking, you know, a lot of bad things. But yeah.
No offense, Pikes.
Yeah, but my dad was lifting one day in the gym, whatever, 2 days after they get back from this vacation, and this guy named Todd comes up to my dad when he's lifting, or he's benching or something like that, and he's like, "Hey man, can I lift with you or whatever? Can I bench with you?" And my dad explained Todd as this super skinny, kind of nerdy looking dude who's also wearing a pink shirt or something that day. And so my dad wasn't too fond of him at first. And my dad was kind of trying to push him away, but he was like very persistent, whatever. And then after they worked out, he invited my dad to Bible talk. My dad would totally remember the prayer that they had prayed a couple days ago. But believe it or not, that same day, and that same person, Todd, went door knocking on the like a little bit further from the gym on campus.
Yeah.
And was knocking and knocking. And he came and he knocked on my mom's door that same day.
What?
It's
That's
like
awesome.
crazy. And invited my mom to Bible talk. And of course, my mom remembered the prayer though. And was
Right.
like, "We'll be there. My boyfriend and I just prayed for this. Like we're gonna be there," which was in a couple days. And my mom got sick the next day. And she didn't go to the Bible talk that Thursday or something like that. But Todd came back. He knocked on my mom's door that Friday and asked like, "I thought you were gonna be there. You seemed pretty excited." My dad was there though. So when Todd knocked on the door, my dad came to the door and my dad's like, "Todd?"
That's cool.
And you know, they studied the Bible, became disciples.
That's
and
awesome.
you know, I grew up in the church, you know, studied the Bible myself and you know, came to God.
That's awesome, guys. Those are some good stories. I'm just telling you, like, it seemed like it was the reverse for his parents. Like, you followed Ben, and his dad followed his mom. So that's cool. So right now, you are leading the eastern portion of the Detroit church. Western portion of the Detroit church, out at U of M in Ann Arbor. And you were campus student there?
Yeah, I'm still in school, yeah.
Yeah. And so now the roles are going to switch up for you guys, and you guys are going to be appointed evangelist and women's ministry leader in a week. So, and Mitch, you're going to be the leader of that campus. So, could you guys tell me a little bit about how that transition is affecting your lives, and what do you think about and how you feel about this new position in God's kingdom?
Go ahead.
Wow. Well, I definitely feel like it's an honor to be recognized in this way. It also feels a little weird, you know, too, because we want to be humble.
Yeah.
But also, you know, God is a God of celebration. So I think that He's proud of us and the way that we've grown spiritually. And certainly we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for the last 20 years being part of the Detroit church family. So many people have gone before us. So many people that we've learned from. I mean, I could just name leader after leader after leader that have been here in Detroit that we've gleaned wisdom from over the last 20 years. And so it's exciting, you know, exciting and scary at the same time to be transitioning into a new role. I think I'm mostly excited to see what God's going to do in Grand Rapids, where He's going to take us in our marriage and in our family, but then also where He's going to take us in ministry with the disciples out there. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say the West region of the Detroit church is interesting because it's like its own little church. It's not dissimilar to where Mitch's parents lead in DeKalb. It's a region of Chicago, but it's like its own church.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like a ministry training ground it's a region where the region leaders really get to learn what it's like to lead a small church, and but with the security of having, like, you know, a bigger church behind it and its staff behind it, and
Yeah.
you know, some resources that a small church might not have. And so now it's almost like, you know, we're leaving the nest, and so we're trying to, you know, everything that we've done in the West, we're just going to try to bring to the people in Grand Rapids, and you know, hopefully that works out for us.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is the last 4 or 5 West region leaders have gone on to lead churches.
Yeah.
So whether that's the Newleys, who went on to lead Madison, or the Sherrills, who went on to lead Des Moines, and now they're in Minneapolis, or even the Chows, who were our campus ministers back in the day, Roy and Lisa, they led Detroit for a small while,
Yeah.
you know, with the Kazees and all that. And so I think, and there's more that I don't know, but the fact that the West region is such a unique group of people that, you know, it's not just a campus ministry.
Right.
It's singles, marrieds, mature women,
Right.
kids, kingdom kids, and so the region leaders really are asked to be small church leaders. And so it works out well for when around the Midwest, when there's a need for a church leader.
Yeah.
Like, well, here's Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that seems like how it happens.
Yeah.
How do you feel about now moving into that kind of leadership role in Ann Arbor?
Well, I remember specifically when Ben came over to my place one time. I made him some salad and pasta, you know, and
That's good.
and Ben was like, "Hey, we're gonna be moving to Grand Rapids." I'm like, "Oh." It's like, I kind of could maybe see that happening with some of the circumstances, but it's like, oh, it's coming to fruition now. And you know, he was like, we would like you to step up some more with the campus too. And at first I was like, oh man, I've only been here for 2 or 3 months at the time. I think
Yeah.
when that happened, and so I was more nervous than anything. And I was like, wow, I'm gonna have a lot on my plate, but I'm also very excited too, because I think it'll help the campus evolve into. It is already like our own, but I know once we lose, like, when you lose a respected leader anywhere, you know, you feel like you have more responsibility, and it's going to help us all
Yeah.
really grow, and I'm going to grow a ton from it, you know.
That's actual facts.
Yeah.
Actual facts.
Because, you know, I know that you've learned so much from them, and these 2 people here are like unbelievably fruitful. And it's not always with just the baptizing disciples. Like, if it weren't for you guys, I might not even be married, to be honest. You know, and it's weird to think that. I was like, but they let me stay in their condo, you know, like. And
There's a couple people like that. She met Solomon's wife.
yeah.
She was
So
in our team ministry.
that's what I mean. Like, you guys are fruitful in many, many more ways than just baptizing disciples. And people seem to forget that there's, you know, they don't like associate with being fruitful with just your relationships around the kingdom and how you connected these spiritual lives. And it's amazing, honestly. So thank you also. This is the other thing I wanted to ask you. So you guys have kids. You are raising a family, children, and you know, and you've been raising them in this church. So, with that in mind, what has been your favorite memory being here in Detroit church, and you know, raising a family here? You know.
Wow. You want to go?
It's like, wow.
Is that
Well,
too-
Jen and I, we led the teen ministry here for 6 years.
Right.
From 2000 to 06, we were involved in the teens. And so at one point, we led the whole teen ministry. And we got some really good training, I guess, from
Yeah.
helping with the teens. Not only from leading the teens, but the marrieds that were in our lives during that time. So like Ellen and Sandy Aubert, and the Perkins, and the Chows, the Kizzies, the Williams, they all were like involved. They discipled us during these years, and so not just leading the teens, but seeing these other parents help us was super impactful, I think, for me. And then now we got out of the teens when we had Everett, so that was 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, now he's going into the teen ministry.
Yeah.
And one of our teens is now a teen leader in the teen ministry, which is crazy to think about. But I think some memories would just be the people that we had into our home over the years, and the time we spent in other people's homes. When like Everett, when he thinks about his best friends, they're Darius and Titus. That was what they were kind of most sad about when it was proposed that we'd move to Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
It was actually the most helpful to be able to reassure them, like, oh, we're still in the same state.
Yeah.
We'll be able to see them at all Midwest things. Camp is huge.
Sure.
Every summer going to camp. So I would say for us, those are probably big. For anyone watching, those are really big, is being in each other's homes,
Yeah.
building relationships with other kids from church, and going to camp every summer.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's not necessarily one particular memory. It's really a book of memories, and it all revolves around togetherness. Like I can think of really funny things that happened when we were in campus ministry, different situations or road trips or funny jokes from back then, and I can think about all the small groups we've been a part of over the years, and goofy things we've done together. And then even in the last few years, leading campus ministry in the West, like that's just like the best.
Yeah.
And I think when you ask about our kids and the family element, for me as a mom, watching my boys have the opportunity to interact with people like Mitchell or other brothers and sisters who they can look up to and be like, oh, they're super cool and they're disciples. Like it's one of those things when it says in the Bible that Mary treasured things up in her heart, like that's how I feel, like that I can treasure these things up in my heart when I watch Everett and Freddie, having a great time with the campus students and or having mentoring times with brothers. I treasure that up, like that.
Yeah.
Those are important memories for me. And again, it just revolves around the family. Like I can't have these great memories if I'm not with disciples.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You have a memory yet?
Yeah. There's been a lot that's happened in these 4
Really?
months.
There's some great
But
memories.
honestly, like some of my greatest memories are hanging with their boys. I would say,
Yeah.
if anything. We've had a lot of fun times. Even I think piggybacking off of that, I remember when I was growing up in the church, like I can relate to the boys a lot because my dad is a minister in the Chicago region, and I loved having this guy named Tim Hunter in my life. When I was in middle school and high school, we hung out a lot, and he was in the campus at the time.
Yeah.
And I treasured that a lot, and so it helped me become a disciple too. And I love hanging out with the boys for that reason alone too, because it's nice.
It is nice to have like someone who almost mentors you in a way.
An older
Just to
brother.
be
Yeah.
there. Oh. So
This might be the motion.
that might be it. But I guess I had another question.
Okay.
One more question, or 2 more questions. The first question is, what excites you about going to Grand Rapids and being a leader there?
I think the thing that excites me the most is, from a ministry standpoint, is like when we took over the West region, we knew everybody.
Yeah.
Like this was our region.
Right.
So we instantly had a lot of trust with people. And so when we came up with a crazy idea, everyone was like, sounds great, let's do it. For the most part. But there was a lot of goodwill and trust like hardwired into the region because it was our people. And so we saw good things come from that. And so now I guess the question is, like, can we go to a church where we're just learning who these people are? And we've met them, and we've spent time with them, and we're excited to learn them more and really invest in them. But can we minister to them the way we ministered to people we already had a lot of trust with? And so I can see that there might be some like fear, like, oh, will they like us? Or when we have an idea, will they reject us? And they're awesome people, and we're already building really cool relationships with them. They have a lot of boys, and so we need all those boys to become really good friends. But I love teaching and preaching and building family, so that's what I'm really excited about.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm excited just to see what God's going to do in our family, and certainly with the disciples in Grand Rapids as well. But it's occurred to me, like, man, this could be the place where my kids' hearts are converted. Where my kids' hearts really turn to God. So I'm excited to see that process. But then also, like, it's hard to say, but I'm excited to see how God grows my own heart. Like, I'm sure that's gonna be rough, but which makes it a scary thing to say. But I've been here my whole life, so this is gonna be a new experience for me, geographically, but also spiritually. And I'm like, wow, God, what are you trying to teach me right now? What are you going to be teaching me in the coming years? And how are you going to grow our marriage and grow my kids into young men and hopefully disciples?
That's great. Last question.
Okay.
Before the lights go out on us again. The last question is, like, what resources have you guys used, like, as far as books or websites or like studies that you've used to raise your children, become better leaders, any resources that you can give us to help others be better disciples who might find themselves one day in a leadership position? What are some of those resources that you would give out?
There's a lot there. I think so. Here's my first resource: is other people.
Okay.
Listen to advice, take advice, seek advice out. Like I mentioned, I thought of it when you were asking about the kids. Like, when I see someone, when I see someone's family, I notice the good things and the less desirable things that work and things that don't work. And really strong spiritual people do things that don't work, and then they learn from it and grow. So I think making sure that you are always like watching and being part of a community. Don't reject discipling when people say, hey, here's something I see in your character. Like, you should really think about how much courage it took for them to even say that, and grow from that. If you don't do that, you will be stunted spiritually, and you'll never be a useful person. And so that's one thing. The Bible.
Okay.
This sounds super trite, but make sure you read the Bible. Even in the sense of like when we are trying to counsel or disciple or help another person or couple, like it would be very easy just to kind of spout what we think and our opinions. But I appreciate even Jen. She sets a great example of this, where she'll like listen, she'll take a lot of time, and then she'll start flipping through the scriptures instead of just talking. So I think, definitely never see the Bible as like just something that you read to refer to, but that it's actually a useful tool that you're using, which is why we want to like reach out to people and study the Bible with them.
Right.
So a couple things. I use my Bible software that I use is called Olive Tree, and it's by Zondervan, and so I have like all my translations and all my like books in there. And so when I sit down to either write a sermon or just have my quiet time, that's the thing, the Olive Tree.
Olive Tree.
Yeah. A lot of people use like Logos or different things, but for whatever reason, I like that one. And then, just some books. Like I referenced a book today in the sermon that's really helpful and we've used a lot. It's called Misreading Scripture Through Western Eyes. I think it's removing cultural blinders to interpreting the Word of God or something like that. But misreading Scripture through Western eyes. And that's a super useful tool. The Mike Burns book, Culture, Race, and Kingdom, super useful for a minister, for leadership in general, especially in a diverse church like Detroit.
Yeah.
So I would say we use Bible Hub a lot online.
Oh yeah.
So I just gave someone a tutorial today on Bible Hub how to use the Greek. Super. They were like, I didn't even know this was on there. I use this, but I didn't know. So, and there's a billion more, but those are probably some big ones.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I use Bible Hub a lot.
Yeah.
I'm always looking up the Greek and Hebrew just to deepen my study and understanding of the scriptures. But then I don't shy away from secular resources, secular nonfiction. Having collected a few degrees, I read a lot of books, about leadership or about education or learning styles.
Yeah.
And that's all been helpful for me
Yeah.
to really shape the way that I counsel other disciples and how I understand the world and understand people. So I would say make sure you're also reading secular resources.
Yeah.
And Tozer.
And I love Tozer. Yes.
Tozer?
Yeah.
What about you?
One book I always keep in mind that my dad showed me is this book called Failure of Nerve. It helps a lot with leadership. And I love it because the chapters are easy to pick out where if I feel like I need to work on something in my leadership, I can go back to a certain spot or a certain chapter and read it over.
Yeah.
So I almost have that in my backpack at all times in case I just want to read it. Other than that, I actually agree with John, like just reading secular books a lot of times.
Yeah.
I try to read like a new novel at least once a month or two.
Okay.
And do that a lot because it keeps my ideas fresh.
What's your most recent novel that you read?
I don't know if I'd even call this, I'm rereading through Halo books.
Yeah.
From my high school days. Because when I was in
Oh,
high school, during the winter break, I'd read through, I had 8 Halo books that I loved to read. So that's what I'm reading through right now.
Okay. Yeah. I read, I would say probably maybe 2 to 3 books a year. So the last one I read was like maybe, I can't remember what it was called, but the one before that I remember the most was The Shack.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have, right?
Yeah.
But it was had a life-changing perspective in it that I think is important. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much it. That is Ben and Jen Weatherston, soon to be evangelist and women's ministry leader, and Mitch Peréz, soon to be, what would you say it was? Campus leader.
West Campus.
Yes. So that's their stories. It's an amazing story. We look forward to seeing what you're going to do in Grand Rapids, leaving the Detroit church, but not leaving the Detroit church.
Right.
We look forward to seeing you back. And thank you so much for listening to us. Again, this is the Detroit Church of Christ. And we love you guys, and I hope you're encouraged.
Amen.